How long after I separate my male and female guppies? Really good question.
Mhm.
Usually 2 to 3 litters, but some can do more. Are able to hold sperm in stasis. That means in kind of a protected environment
Mhm.
where they stay alive, and I guess they provide some nutrition, so that as the eggs mature, the sperm is released and is able to fertilize the eggs, and they can one spawn can fertilize 2 or 3 different um, spawn. When a female grows eggs, it starts on the ovary as a cyst, and then it sort of breaks off from that. And in the case of fish, that divides and divides into different eggs, becomes multiple eggs. I may not have the biology of this right, but the principle is there. So you have many, many eggs, and they all get fertilized at once, and or spawned at once. A lot of them are fertilized. I know what it is. It's the live bearer. The eggs that are laid are fertilized externally. The babies that hatch from the egg inside the parent, once they hatch and are born, there is another group of eggs coming off of the ovary that can be internally fertilized by the sperm that the female is holding, and that can happen 2 or 3 times before the sperm either die or are used up or whatever. So one spawning of a guppy can last 2 or 3 spawns. It's not generations because they're not generationally related. They're fraternally related. It's brothers and sisters. They're sibling related. Interesting with puffers. Um, there were some biologists during and after the war in Vietnam who discovered that Vietnam, much of it is swampland. Um, it's off the sea, and it's very deep, very massive, large swamps, which is one of the reasons that the war was so difficult because not only could they tunnel where there weren't swamps, but if you've ever been around the swamp, you know it's pretty easy to hide out in the swamp. But there are upwards of 40 different species of pufferfish in the swamps of Vietnam, most of which have never been brought into the trade. Occasionally, we see new ones coming in, and that that will continue. They're not a protected species. They're very plentiful. And generally, pufferfish are pretty easy to spawn in captivity. So once they are established, then the farmers get hold of them and start breeding them, and that makes them even more available. So uh, there are an enormous variety of fresh and saltwater pufferfish. There are a lot of saltwater puffers, even brackish water puffers. There's puffers are everywhere. Puffers galore. The puffer is interesting. It has one defensive maneuver, which is the gulp water or air. Um, Usually water because that's where it is. It's in the water. If you take it out, it'll gulp air, but if somebody tries to eat it, it'll start gulping air and swell up to the point where the fish that's trying to eat it won't be able to. It'll either get lodged in their mouth or pop out. And they have what very rough skin. Not all of them do, but a lot of them have a rough skin, which just makes them prickly. Again, not all do. there are plenty of South American puffers with very smooth skin. Puffers, neat little fish, a meat eater. They're a meat eater and they are a predator. They will. They have the teeth of a piranha.
Mm-hmm.
They can take a bite out of anything or anybody.
Then we've got a question from Kevin.
Good idea to keep a honey gourami in a tent. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I think I've got at this point all of mine, along with all of my dwarf gouramis, in a 20 long. But yeah, they're fine in the 10-gallon. In fact, you can keep a small group of four to six or so honey gouramis in a 10-gallon tank, and you'll get spawning if everything is working right, and you got a decent tank. They'll start breeding in there. They blow bubble nests like any other gourami. So it's pretty cool when you're able to get them going. The thing to remember about gouramis and plecos for two, and Corydoras is a third. Gourami, pleco, and Corydoras. They are all ambetas, which is a gourami, and a bantha. They are all air breathers. They do not take oxygen, at least not very much, out of the water column. They go to the surface, they release a bubble of air, they take a new bubble of air in. That's how they breathe. So you can have a tank that is severely depleted of oxygen and they will survive. And that's, of course, precisely why they have that ability, because their natural environment is typically a low oxygen environment. They very often they're in swampy areas, very still water, typically water that has a lot of dead material in it that's burning up oxygen. So they're in environments naturally in the wild that are low oxygen environments where other fish would not survive. They can and thrive. The babies do take oxygen out of the water. They have to grow to about, I don't know, half an inch or so until they develop that labyrinth. It's something that they kind of grow into, and they develop that labyrinth ability, and then they make a transition from being able to breathe through gills to being able to use this labyrinth organ that allows them to take in air. What's interesting about goldfish is that, of course, they're bigger than most of the tropical fish that we get. Certainly bigger than a guppy or a molly. Bigger than a lot of the fish that we get. Not bigger than Central American cichlids. And all of the smaller fish, you can put them with them. They do not bother the little fish. And of course, the little fish really aren't going to bother them. So they can live with other fish very successfully. I put them in with rainbows, with angels, which are larger fish, and no problem at all. But they do very well with other fish, and we haven't really considered the benefits of adding goldfish to our tropical fish aquariums. For one thing, they're not a tropical fish. They're a cold water fish, really, if anything. I mean, they can tolerate pretty warm conditions, but they also live through through winters in North America.
They're pretty hard.
Yeah, they're pretty hardy.
Mhm.
I think they're, and when you look at some of the highly developed, highly bred goldfish, the Orandas and Ryukins and so forth, they're just really magnificent.